How you doing, Milsurp Garage here? I'm going to start this Mauser comparison stuff, and I really didn't know where to begin. I'm looking at the different ones and the differences between them and really trying to figure out how to go about a video like this, if I should do them all together. And then I just realized that probably the best way is to just wing it and just do it every which way. And I thought this might be an interesting comparison. The down here on the bottom, and I'm sorry for the shaking, but I'm going to have to do this handheld to be able to move around. This is the 1895 Chilean Mauser, and up here is the 1896 Swedish Mauser. This is 1895 manufacturer. This is 1912 manufacture, but had been around since the late 1800s. Basically designed around the same time. Now, starting at the buttstock, the stocks themselves are even very similar. It appears that they are different. They're not exactly the same, but the Chilean Mauser here might be a little bit thinner in the wrist, and the Swedish Mauser might be a little bit thinner up here near the fore end. So they are a little bit different in their shape, but basically the same design. Butt plates are seemingly identical. When you move on up to the actions of them, actually, you could see how the different countries sort of requested or moved into different things for some reason, what they thought was important. The Swedes, they liked this cocking piece right here that you could actually manipulate with your thumb. You wouldn't be able to actually have the thumb strength to pull it back and cock it with your thumb, but if the rifle was cocked, you would be able to have your thumb on this knurled piece to lightly lower the action without actually dry firing it. Whereas with the Chilean Mauser, you'd be able to do much the same. You could see there's the cocking piece there, but no thumb grip on it. But you'd be able to do the same by holding the trigger as you close the action. You would be able to decock it. But for some reason, the Swiss thought this important. More importantly, what the Chileans added, that's pretty cool. Here we have the a two locking lug system here on the Swedish Mauser as well as the Chilean Mauser. But if these lugs should fail, there's nothing preventing the bolt from coming rearward. Whereas the Chilean Mauser, very interestingly, right here, they had a flange added on there. If you could see that, so the bolt handle itself will actually act as a locking lug, not a true locking lug, but just as a safety feature, that if the locking lugs should fail, the fact that the bolt is recessed into that little notch that they add on there would act as a safety device. Whereas you see, and none of the others actually have this. There's good reason why to compare them all to each other. They started adding third locking lugs after a while, like in here. But this Chilean one is the only one that really has a feature like this that I thought was kind of interesting. The bolts themselves are kind of the same. There really aren't much differences. They have the non-rotating collar, and they're both controlled feed. They have similar stripper clip guides, except of course for the size. The Chilean is in 7mm Mauser, the Swedish in 6.5 by 55. One of the biggest differences is with the sights. The Chilean Mauser has a sight. It locks up in here on the top. You'll see a lot of people You could even see the difference in the color of the steel here, that people park this sight way down here. Pardon me, my hand's in the way. They usually park it way down here and leave it like this. Whereas if something gets caught here, it can manipulate or move it or bend it. You see it is located in position with this block right here. However, it could get potentially caught on something, lifted up and damaged. It actually has a provision where it can, let me switch hands here. I don't know why I'm doing everything with my left hand. That was pretty silly. It has a provision here where you can park it underneath here. There's like, there's grooves here that allow it to park underneath. You can see they slide in there. And then those tabs click down. And I'm trying to lift now. It actually locks in there. This is actually the way to carry and keep this sight under normal circumstances. But like I said, you could see for so many years it was parked down here, but incorrectly. This sight does not have a ramp, so sliding this back and forth has absolutely no effect on this normal regular sight right here. This is only for tipping upwards and then utilizing the sight in this manner for long range with the graduations listed on here. Now the Swedish sight in comparison, let's get that locked into place properly. There we go. Now the Swedish sight in comparison, it's a little bit different. You utilize this sight, and as you, it actually tips up in this direction now. And you can see this is set for 300, I suppose it would be meters. And if you set it up more to 5 or 6, you can see underneath here there's actually a stepped plate which would raise this sight as you moved to the higher and higher graduations. It begins raising this. So sliding this back and forth here using these numbers, you are actually raising and lowering the sight. Then, if you get to 6 and want to go even higher, you can go even higher here using, here we continue 7, 8, 9, 10 all the way up using this sight in this manner, using this piece right here. This one does not have anything to lock it down, a feature or any type of feature, but if you left it at the lowest with 300 yards would be the closest this sight would be sighted in for, and you would leave it in this position. So they definitely, worked with a different sight there. Depending on, which each country had its own way of wanting to handle things. But I like figuring out how that parks in there is very interesting. I've never seen another one left stowed in this position, but I'm certain this was the regular position just for carrying it and storing it. Sling swivels are in the same basic areas. Barrel bands are pretty much the same. Even lengths are pretty much identical. Front sights are pretty much the same. The front barrel bands are different only because you see the Chilean Mauser uses a conventional type of bayonet mount, whereas the Swedish Mauser here uses its own type of mount, very unique. I don't have the bayonets here with me, but it is an interesting type of bayonet mount. Works well, but different. Well, that's about it. You could see the similarities with these. They are very, very much the same, and it's interesting because as I got into these, I had the Swedish Mauser way before I had the Chilean Mauser, and when I had the Chilean Mauser in my hand and I was looking at it, and after I bought it, and something about it seemed familiar, but I couldn't really tell what. Only until I had them together did I actually realize how similar these two rifles are. They're very, 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 very similar. And all right, so I guess that's the beginnings of the comparison. Functionally, these guys are the same because they are both controlled feed. They use the same internal 5-round magazine system. One thing that is different is that the Chileans, they wanted their bolts to be able to close without pushing the follower down. You see, so there's like it's going to be difficult to pull up on this video, but on the follower, you could see there, right in where the stripper clip guide is, you could see the follower has like an angled ramp to allow the bolt to shove the follower down, whereas the Swedish did not want that. They did not want their soldiers chambering trying to chamber a rifle without a round in the chamber. So as you can see, the bolt will just hit that follower and not close. It will not close on an empty chamber unless you actually physically push the follower down with your thumb. And the Swedish put a cutout here, both probably for pushing the follower down with your thumb to make it easier to do it from this side, or also for pushing in the stripper clip. They put this little half moon in here, whereas the Chileans did not. There is no such cutout here for that. And but the bolt releases are, they're seemingly identical. There's no difference between the two. It looks like it might even be the same part. They might even be interchangeable. And that's it. That's really. I didn't notice any other differences between those couple of things: the sights, that half moon cutout, the follower, and that thumb hold for the cocking piece. And of course, well, the most important feature I would say that's different, that could definitely save the day with the Chilean Mauser, is this tab right here that, like I said, doesn't really act as a locking lug, but can save the day in case of a failure, in the event of a failure. Alright, so like I said, I'm just going to go totally random with these. This is just the first in the series of a comparison. When I see things that are way different, I'm going to start taking things apart and actually laying them out on the table and showing the differences. But for the purposes of these two, they were so similar, it didn't really make sense to take any parts apart, because functionally they're pretty much the same. And never really realized how similar these actually were to each other. So those are the 1896 and the 1895. 1896 Swedish and 1895 Chilean. All right, everybody, take care.